You're listening to the Breakdown Duo with Deb and T-Wise. They break it down to build you up. Let's join this mother-son duo as they break down tonight's hot topic.
All right, what's up, everybody? This is T-Wise. I'm here with my mom, Deb.
Hey, everybody. Going to be another good episode of the Breakdown Duo.
It is.
I like days like today where we just kind of chat and talk about our week and what's been going on. And so, how's your week been?
It's been good.
Yeah.
I've been really busy. I worked a lot this week, but it was good. It's, that whole concept of when you finish a project, when you put your full effort into something and then it comes to a complete close and you can see your work in its completion, like you just feel so good inside, knowing you gave it your all, you saw it through. You come into your weekend just fully relaxed because you gave the whole week everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, imagine those weeks where everything feels unfinished.
Yeah.
You have a totally different gut feeling going into the weekend when things are just kind of that. And I think a lot about that because my word this year is finish. And so I realize, okay, I'll start to do something and then shift gears and think, no, I need to finish that.
Yeah.
Instead of just start another thing. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's a good segue into one of the things I wanted to talk about.
What do you want to talk
about? Is I'm reading back through the Bible, and one of the stories that I heard fairly recently was, or read fairly recently was about Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt, and prayed that they could be free from slavery, and God helped free them from that. And then once they got into the desert, they didn't have food, and so they prayed for another miracle, and God supplied manna, and that wasn't good enough because they're like, well, where's the meat?
Yeah.
We had fish and all that back in Egypt, and it didn't cost us anything. And so
all we wanted.
Yeah. So those comforts in that moment outweighed the slavery that they wanted to get away from. And through that whole journey on the way to the promised land, which is so much better than anything they've experienced before, nothing was good enough. Every single time that, God, we need you to do this. Okay, here, he answers the prayer. Oh, well, that's not quite what we expected. It's not good enough. Okay, next destination. Oh, this isn't happening right. Hey, God, will you help us? Okay, he answers the prayer. Wait, that's not quite what we expected.
Oh, no, they'd say, oh, you are the best, you are God, and then a few days later, oh, yeah.
So obviously, that's the Israelites, but we all do that so frequently,
yeah.
Where we when our needs are met, when God answers prayers, how quickly do many of us turn back around and say, well, that was good, but I still need more, or it's not good enough, or you didn't answer quite the way I needed you to. And
yeah, well, and one thing about the Israelites is often, I guess, I feel like God is always there. They just didn't go to him. And that's one of the things he was teaching them. They, they would come up with a problem, like you mentioned the manna. We need something to eat. Okay, he gave them manna, and oh, that's great, it's there. But he gave them just enough for the day. For a reason, I think. He gives us just enough for the day, but then we find ourselves going, I feel better when I have enough for this day and I've stored a little just in case, because that's me doing my part. And I feel better if I'm doing a little. But God really wants us to totally trust him.
Right. And so when he commanded, have enough for today and then burn the rest.
Yeah.
And then knowing that he would supply more the following day, that is such a hard thing for us to do. I mean, my goodness, that I know in my own life to think, like you said, not to have surplus of something, but to have just enough and trust that there will be just enough again is probably one of the most difficult things that I encounter, because that's comfort zone. The surplus is the comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
That's the boundary, that buffer that allows us to not lean 100% in on God, and have that little bit of, wait, I still have a little bit of control, because I have the buffer. And then when the buffer's gone, okay, now I don't have any more control. My only option is to lean 100% in, and that's scary for most of them.
Yeah. And I think I agree. I think when we study the Old Testament, one of the things we have to always remember, Tyler, is that it's the story of God. It's really easy because the Israelites are so shallow and they're so human and they fail so often, to get caught up in their story.
Earlier, you were saying something about they got so focused looking at what they didn't have or what they had lost that they were missing out on what was coming. And
I think that's key for all of us, don't you?
Yeah.
Because it's like if you've ever been in an organization, had a job you loved, or been in a church, had a pastor you loved, any place where there was a leader, and then that leader's gone and is replaced. It doesn't take very long, and I mean very long at all, before that previous leader becomes almost perfect. Because even though while you had that leader, there were struggles, but compared to the new leader, it feels so much better the way it was. So if we're constantly focused on what we've lost, we can't accept change. We can't move into the future with anticipation and expectation. Is like, what we used to do this and it was so good, and it was, but it doesn't mean that it can't be different and better. And we just cannot get, and scripture is very clear in Matthew 6. He says, seek first my kingdom and all this will be added to you. Do not worry about tomorrow. Don't stay in the past. Learn from the past, take in the good things, and
and repeat what you said about getting out of Egypt.
I'm doing a study right now, which has been fascinating, because the premise is that the Sabbath was created to help the Israelites, because although they had been taken out of Egypt and out of slavery, so they're no longer slaves, God created the Sabbath to help take Egypt out of them, because they still had that you said that mentality to go back and think it wasn't perfect, but all of a sudden that was their thing. And so when you have the Sabbath added in Exodus, I think Numbers or Exodus, the first time it's really,
you said that whole thing very wordy, as opposed to when you said to me earlier, but God had to take them out of Egypt and then take Egypt out of them.
Yeah.
That's how you phrased it before.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say.
And I think that's a really great way of looking at it, because like, to bring this kind of a little bit more modern, right now we're about to start March Madness.
Yeah.
Right. College basketball season. You and I love it. Even though we don't root for the same teams.
Never.
But one thing that happens every single year is there's a really small school that has never been to the tournament before, or maybe they haven't been to the tournament for 60 years, and all of a sudden they end up winning enough games and they win their conference title to where they can get into the tournament. And if they didn't break that mentality of losing and never making it to the tournament, which is kind of like getting Egypt out of them,
yeah.
Right? They have to get the losing mentality out of the culture of the school program.
Yeah.
Then nothing would change, and it would continue year after year. But you have maybe a new coach that came in, or you have new players that came in.
Yep.
You have somebody that lent something positive to the culture and said, we're not going to lose anything.
Yeah.
No, enough is enough. We're going to not look at what the school program has done. We're going to believe that we can go and win this thing and make it to the tournament and play these big teams like Duke and North Carolina and Kentucky. And, it's when I see that, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the underdog. And I think that right there is why it's so easy to cheer on and root for the underdog, because when you understand what they had to overcome just mentally to have that paradigm shift, to get away from a losing culture to a winning one, that in itself makes you want to cheer them on and be like, yeah, keep it going, right?
You cheer for the underdog. Yeah, and Tyler, one of the things I think is important in this conversation is, you said maybe a new coach, a new player.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, I don't really see the nation of Israel, 600,000, 800,000 men. I don't really see them all of a sudden they wake up one morning and everybody's unhappy. I see maybe one tribe complaining, or just that murmuring that, it was better then, and then it catches to another tribe, and then it grows. Same thing when you have a school that's struggling, and pretty soon the parents are like bad coaches. It just gets that whole negative thing. Right. Same thing in a church. You get a church that's struggling, and everybody gets on. It's just so easy to get on the bandwagon of, oh my word, I don't like the worship, or they preach too long, or instead of what we've been trying to do is find that positive, and it doesn't even have to be a new coach. It doesn't have to be a new player. It just has to have somebody with a new attitude who decides to quit looking at everything that they've lost and start going, wait a minute, what could we become?
Yeah.
That's the underdog thing. And the thing is, once that momentum gets going, you cannot stop it. Almost like you said, almost every year there's one team. Like I love Duke, and I cheer for Duke all the time. I know you don't like Duke, but I love Duke. I love the coach. And so
he's not there.
I know. So now I have to rethink that, but Coach K was awesome. But anyway, it's just hard not to cheer for this one team that's coming up, and they have this wave of momentum, and it's all the reporters start reporting it. It's like, this little team from they can't go up against it. Well, they've shown, all of a sudden everything changes.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be, because everybody's now looking forward. You hear less and less about how many times they've lost and how many they beat so-and-so, they beat.
Yeah.
So if you can get that momentum going, and that's I think what happened in Israel. I mean, think of Joshua and Caleb. They go into the promised land, and there's all these spies, but two say we can do it. The others are like, no. And when those guys turned everybody against, everybody says, oh no, they're too big, they're too powerful, we can't do it. They did not get to go to the promised land. So we can't count God out. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And one last story. Today I got a phone call from our good friend that we love, and he's in a memory care unit. And he had been watching the news today. And I knew where we were headed, because when he called, he goes, Pastor Deb, I just got to talk to you. The world's coming to an end. There's this, and there's this. And I'm trying to get a word in, but he is just on a roll.
Yeah.
It's the worst in 2 years, political, just everything. And he's not weeping, but he's emotional. His voice is quivering. He's getting louder. And finally, I'm in the car. I said, JD, listen to me. What? Because he can't hear very well.
Yeah.
What do you want to say? And I said, JD, you've counted God out. Yes, everything you're saying is fact, but you've counted God out. You haven't told me one time that God can make a difference, and God's still in control. Oh yeah, he says, So we just can't count God out.
Yeah. I think another area that I think is interesting that I'd like to talk about today is, you talked about the Sabbath, and so there's two philosophies on it. Why don't you go into detail?
No, it's not. It's just that I'm doing a study, and her premise is in Genesis 2:2, it says, like in my Bible, it says, by the seventh day, creation was complete. So in my mind, day 7 is not a work day. So he says, so he rested. So it's almost like in my mind, I've been thinking, okay, God worked, he created everything. And then 6th day he creates man, and then he's done. He rests.
And then he was like,
but
okay.
Yeah. But if you look at some different versions, like go back to King James or go to the Greek, it actually doesn't say by, it says on the 7th day, creation was complete. So I'm like, okay, by. And the premise of this study is that God actually created rest on the 7th day. And for me, if I buy into that, that kind of changes the whole Sabbath thought, the whole rest thought, because now it's not just he did it, so I should do it. He created it, meaning he created it for Adam and Eve. He knew they would need that day. So he must mean I need it.
Yeah.
And then he goes on and he commands them to observe it. So he creates. I just have never thought of it that way. And I don't think we understand rest either. I'm just kind of getting into that. I don't think rest is like you said, I don't think that's rest. I think rest is pulling back and allowing yourself to change your focus, not in creating, but in just being.
No. What? One, I think that's a really cool way of looking at that. Because like you said, when it is, he created a rest and then told us to observe what he just created, then we need to take it way more serious than we do as a culture in society. Because I mean, you said earlier, the idea of rest has such a negative connotation right now, because it's like, well, I got to be doing something, I got to be busy, I've got to I got to work hard, and it's like, yes, but you need that time to recover.
But why do you think we all need to work and be busy? What is it in us that we feel we need that?
Well, I think it's different for everybody.
Yeah, but I kind of think it's a central, I think we get our worth from it. for the most part.
I think a lot of people do, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right, not everybody, but most people, it's like, oh, what'd you do? Oh, I did that, and then you feel worse.
Yeah. When I talk to families that have really busy schedules and, ask them like how their week went and they list off everything that they did, they do say it with an ounce of pride, like,
Yeah.
look how much we did this week.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, as long as it made you guys happy,
Yeah.
and it's something that everybody enjoyed and wanted to do, great, good for you guys. But being busy doesn't make you better. It's just the design of your lifestyle. And I know it because, like, for me, I'm busier now than I used to be
Mhm.
because I'm doing so many things.
Especially 2 jobs.
But at the same time, I still have quite a bit of free time, um, like late in the evenings and stuff when
Yeah.
there's nothing else going on. And it's just me, no kids running around that I have to worry about getting to bed or anything like that. And for me, just sitting and enjoying some Netflix or what, like, I am so comfortable in that environment,
Mhm.
and I don't feel like I need other people to validate, like, oh yeah, you're doing a lot. You're, like,
Yeah.
no, I'm living my own life, man. So
I know, but I think that's a gift that you need to not take for granted, that God has centered you in that way, because as I was telling you earlier, I have a good friend who just in the last 6 months just pulled off all of social media
mm,
and literally shared with me, you have to mentally fight against feeling like you're less than everyone else, because somebody will say, did you know so and so had a heart attack? You're kidding me. Well, if you'd be on Facebook, you'd know this stuff. So it's just a very weird vibe that's going right now.
yeah,
Or we talk a lot about social media and how it can be negative, but I do think for the most part there's a lot more negative than positive. There are ways to use it for positive, like for me to stay in touch with my family and stuff, but to just post, guess what I did this week, and guess what but then, like I remember the day my book came out, that's the first thing I wanted to do is show a picture of my book on Facebook, and not because look at me, but like I knew so many people would be so excited for me because they know how long it took me to get that written.
yeah.
But yeah, I just think that busy schedule can become our barometer for how successful we are, how fulfilled we are. And to say I have margins in my life and boundaries, it's kind of like,
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like I say this quite a lot. I think a lot of people design their life to be cluttered and busy because they are afraid of the opposite.
yeah,
Um, because when you have that time to sit and rest and contemplate and be with your own thoughts, you don't like the thoughts that you have, because that's when the insecurities creep up.
yeah,
That's when the second guessing of your decisions in life creep up, like all the things that you are suppressing because you don't have time to think about them because we're going from here, we're there, and all this stuff, right? And so it's basically getting buried deep in the back of your mind.
mhm,
and and I kind of think maybe that might be one of the reasons why God created rest, is not only to have a very specific time to like an entire day to focus on him, um, but also a day of contemplation.
yeah,
How did your week go? What did you learn? Can you improve on anything? How are you doing as a person?
mhm,
Are you living a Christ-like life? You know, did you mess up this week? How can you improve next week? I think those are important things rest on and think about.
And if you just keep going, you don't have to deal with that.
Right.
If you just go. Yeah. That's interesting you'd say that, because I met with a new friend this week for coffee, and she was at a retreat I recently did. And she was telling me, she said, do you remember Saturday morning after you spoke, you told us to take a half hour, and it was supposed to be a half hour of silence. And of course I remember. And she said, and you started explaining it. You said, okay, take a half hour, take a piece of paper and a pencil, lay a table, set it down, and for a half hour, just sit there quietly and wait until God starts talking to you. And when God starts talking, write down what he says. And she was so cute, because she's looking at me and she goes, I thought, is she nuts? Are you kidding me? There is no way. First of all, she said, I knew God wouldn't talk to me. And then I was going to come back and have to make up a whole big lie, because there's no way God was going to talk to me. And then she said, and then what was he going to say if he did talk to me? So it's just what you're saying. But I asked her, and I said, I just smiled and I said, and did he talk to you? And she goes, yes. And I said, and was it powerful? And she goes, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not drawn to that. We're not drawn to the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
We're drawn to keeping up with the Joneses. Yeah, interesting.
What else do you want to talk about?
I guess we've sort of run the course for me. Well, did we think of anything else? I think that's pretty good.
Today we're doing our family bracket challenge, right?
Yes, we are.
For March Madness.
Yes.
We're putting some money on it this year.
All over it. Can't wait. Yeah. Yeah, we got a time change coming up tonight, and so that's always a crazy thing. How could 1 hour affect you so much?
Yeah.
But it does.
Yeah. My birthday's coming up.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dad told you. I think Dad maybe ruined surprise.
Oh, poor Dad.
Oh my gosh. He said something the other day. I said, I don't know if you're supposed to tell me that. and the look on his face was so confused, because he's like, I don't know if it was a secret. Maybe I wasn't supposed to tell you. And I mean, Dad, you could just see his wheels turning, and he's like, I might be in deep trouble now. Like, it was pretty funny. So,
oh my word. Well, anyway, hey, I just want to tell y'all, keep talking to us. We got several emails this week, and one in particular with 2 or 3 ideas. By the way, we have a round table coming up. We've invited 2 of our good friends who are very wise and very articulate to come have a round table with Tyler. They're going to take him on.
They're very opinionated.
Yeah, they're very opinionated.
More so than me, which I think is going to be
it's going to be really fun. That's coming up in just a couple of weeks. So that'll be on regular podcast or forum or on YouTube. So anyway, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, definitely make sure that you guys are checking out the new YouTube channel.
Share it.
A lot of work's going into that. We're still learning a lot of things, so it's pretty amateur, but just bear with us. Definitely subscribe. Yeah. Like the videos. That all helps.
Comment. Tell us. Yeah, I disagree. We've gotten a couple of those recently, and I love that.
Absolutely. And anytime anything can go public, that just helps get the message out to other people. So really appreciate you guys, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you for joining this broadcast with the breakdown duo of Deb and T-Wise. Share this podcast with someone it might help and hit subscribe. See you next week as the duo breaks it down to build you up.